Hello YouTube, this is Jesse Ferguson, Canadian singer-songwriter and folk musician, otherwise known as the Bard of Cornwall here on YouTube. And I'd like today to bring to you another short video in my series on basic music techniques, especially geared towards, say, folk musicians or people who play sort of simpler styles of music, so rock and roll, country, blues, those kind of things, sort of folk-influenced music. So today's subject is metronomes, what they are, the history, how to use them, the different types and so on. And I am not a formally trained musician. I mostly by ear or playing by chord books or things like that. So if you want the more technical aspects of how to use metronomes for, say, classical music performance, then this may not be the video for you, although it could possibly be a good introduction to them. What is a metronome? Well, the definition is basically any device of any kind, of which there are three major types now, any device or software program that creates a regular pulse for the use of improving or regulating your musical timing. So you play a song and you want to be right on the beat without skipping a beat, without speeding up or slowing down. Well, a metronome allows you to do that. For better or for worse. Some people don't agree with their use. We'll get into that in a second. But any device that does that is called a metronome, which might include even possibly a clock. I've done that before, waiting around for the bus or something like that, or waiting while my nachos cook in the oven. We have one of the sort of wind-up timers, and it creates a regular pulse. So I'd start singing to it or doing beatboxing, because I'm a bit of a nerd. But anyway. Any device that functions that way can work as a metronome, although most of metronomes would be sort of purpose-built things that only serve that function. So, what is the history of the metronome? Well, the clock mechanism has been around a lot longer, and it was the basis of metronomes. But in terms of mass-produced mechanical metronomes, you're looking at around the early 19th century. And Beethoven was apparently the first Western major composer to include notation for metronome timing on his scores. So he would put down how many beats per minute according to a metronome, rather than just indicating with the traditional Italian terminology, largo or presto, or any of those sort of terms to indicate how fast the beat should be played, or at what tempo the music should be played at. So that's the history of them. And since then, there have been new kinds added, new types of metronomes beyond just the mechanical. And we'll talk about those in a minute. Well, actually right now. So the major types, the first one is the mechanical metronome, of which here I have Wittner, or Wittner, as you might pronounce it in English pronunciation. This is the tactile piccolo, which I just purchased about a month ago. And it's the old-fashioned mechanical, or what they also call the clockwork style metronome. This is the tactile piccolo model. I'll put the title in the description. And so what you have here is a pendulum and a spring, basically. And inside the machine, inside the unit, there's a clockwork mechanism, so gears and cogs and so on. So once you've wound it up, you adjust what tempo you would like with this sliding metronome weight, and then you release the pendulum and set it going. And as you hear, it creates a regular pulse, and you can also see it moving back and forth, so it gives you a visual cue. So the definition of a metronome is that it creates an auditory pulse, an oral pulse that you hear. But many of them, including the clockwork style, also include a visual cue. So you either get flashing lights in the digital kind, or moving pendulum in the mechanical kind. And so you get a faster tempo if you slide the weight down, and slower if you slide it up. And that's the traditional clockwork style. Now, the other major type that you might have encountered is the digital kind. This is of which I have two examples. This is the Boss chromatic tuner, which also includes a metronome. So you can tune your guitar or your violin or your mandolin with it, but it also includes a metronome function, which, as you can see, I hope you can see that, there's also a flashing light, digital LED, and a moving L, what do you call those, digital pendulum type arm. And you can adjust the digital kind for time signatures, tempo, things like that. So you notice that it has a 4/4 time signature here. So one note sounds a slight different, or one beat has a slightly different note assigned to it. You can also adjust it for waltz time, 3/4, and things like that. My major problem with this one is that it's not loud enough when you're singing and playing guitar. It's just not loud enough, and you can't adjust the volume, which is annoying. But it is handy to have this in a chromatic tuner, otherwise you just have the tuner. This does work if you're not singing, or if you're doing, say, a quiet, folky song, finger picking and something like that. But I would recommend these tuners. They're a good tuner as well as being a metronome as well. The third one that I have in my collection is made by Korg, and it is called the Metronome. I don't know if they still make this. This one's a few years old. And metronome with a G, as in the small mythical creatures, so it's a pun on metronome. And it goes into your ear and clips on like an earpiece, like sort of like a Bluetooth headset. And I really don't use this one much because, well, for one thing, the buttons on it are so small, it's very hard to work with. And I'll bring it closer so you can hear the sound that it produces. It's about as annoying as a digital sound could be. It's a very high-pitched squeak, quite loud, right in your ear canal. And so I find it quite annoying to listen to it. That to me is one of the major advantages of this style, the mechanical style, is the type of sound it produces. It's very natural, like a real music sound, as opposed to like a digitized MIDI kind of sound. That, of course, is a type of personal preference, but I find this one really annoying. Although the size of it is convenient, you can throw it inside your gear bag or something like that and always have one with you if you want to practice. It may also have applications if you wanted to discreetly have a metronome going while you were performing on stage, possibly. But anyway, those are two digital dedicated metronomes. The third major type that you might encounter these days are software metronomes. So in other words, it's just a program either that you can use on the internet or download a version onto your computer, which works just like a metronome. You can adjust the tempo, you can adjust the time signature, the volume of it. One nice thing about the computer ones is that you can adjust the volume to anything you would like. Some standalone digital tuners also have a volume control. That's the other thing. The one that I would prefer, and I was considering instead of the mechanical one, was the kind with the wheel. I think Wittner also makes one. So you can adjust the tempo by use of a wheel, and you can adjust the volume. But again, digital music equipment to me doesn't seem to last very well. I go through one of these digital tuners about every 2 or 3 years. Being a practicing musician, I gig out quite a bit, so it gets thrown in the gear bag, dropped, things like that. I mean, I guess I'm abusing it somewhat, but to me it should be a bit more robust. But my son chews on them when he was younger. And so anyway, they don't tend to last very well for me. Plus you're constantly using batteries and things like that. I like the idea of this one possibly lasting 20 years, as I did a lot of read a lot of reviews before I bought this one. Made in Germany, quality exactly the same way for quite a number of years. And some people were saying this exact model has lasted them upwards of 20-25 years. So I thought, that sounds great to me. Now, there will be a bit more precision in a digital one than in a mechanical one, especially over time. But to my mind, that's not something to worry about. I mean, if this loses 1 beat every 2,000 beats, that would be on a single whine, mind you. That doesn't really matter to me. Because the main purpose, and I'll get into this in a second, of why I would use a metronome is to improve my timing so that if I play with other musicians, we're on beat together. I can follow, say, a percussionist who's playing. So the percussionist that I'm playing along with is never going to have precise quartz movement timing. It's just not going to happen. No matter how good the drummer is, it's not going to be 100% perfect timing over a 20-minute song, which I never play anyway. So to me, this will always be accurate enough, as long as I don't drop it. So those are the major types. Software. Now you can also find software metronomes in recording software. So GarageBand, and the one that I use on PC now is Mixcraft by Acoustica, which is basically GarageBand for PC. And any kind of software like that will have what they call a click track, which is just a metronome. You can program it the same way you program a software metronome, for instance on Metronome Online, which is one of the better ones for free online. And you can listen to that through your headphones while you record your instrument so that the timing is on. That means you can go back in later and add other instruments, whether virtual or real instruments, to layer up on top of your bass instrument, and you don't have to worry about the timing being off. So it has a huge advantage to do that. Although it does create some problems if there are parts in the song that slow down or speed up. So those are the major types. My recommendation, well, suit yourself. If you want to get a digital one versus a traditional one, maybe you want to vote both if money is no object. But I like the look of this one also as sort of something to just leave on my bookshelf or on my desk or something like that. Especially the sort of retro styling that it has. I find it quite handsome. And for $50, they're in roughly the same price range, a digital one versus a mechanical one. And I would guess, as long as you don't drop the mechanical one, it will definitely outlast a digital one. And you won't have to replace the batteries ever, which is nice. Okay, so how do you actually use a metronome? Well, it's simple enough. If you want me to show, I can show. So this one, I'm setting it right now to 92 beats per minute, the traditional one. It'd be the same thing if I had the digital one. I would just turn it on to 92 beats per minute. Wind it up, set it on a flat surface. Now, ordinarily, I would put it in front of me so that I could watch the pendulum swinging as a visual cue to help my timing. But I'll just play a little something quick to show you how it works. So you turn it on, get a sense for that timing. If it's not the right timing for you, then you have to adjust it to get it somewhere right. Usually what I do in that sense is I start playing the song and tap my foot, and then I will try to match the metronome to my foot rather than match it to some finger picking or something like that. It generally is a little bit simpler to match it to your foot tapping while you play. So this is a little song, traditional song. I'm a rambler, I'm a gambler, I'm a long way from my home. If you people don't like me, I can make out on my own. So anyway, you get the idea. If you get a little bit ahead of the beat or a little bit behind the beat while you try to accommodate that somewhat, the more you practice with it, the easier it will become to follow the beat of the metronome and not have to think about it so much. What you really want to get to is to the point where that beat is just going on in the background of your mind and you're really thinking about your performance, putting emotion into the words, or you know, getting the fingering proper if you are doing lead or something like that. You really don't want to be worried and fixated on following the metronome all the time, especially not if you're performing something. Or recording it, for instance. You really want to just practice so much that it just sort of happens somewhat naturally. So, that's how you use it. And obviously, if you're playing something in waltz time, for instance, if you have the digital ones, you set it to 3/4 time. If you have the mechanical ones, some of the more deluxe models of the mechanical ones also have a bell that rings on a certain beat in the measure. So if you're playing 3 time, it would be a ding, 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 ding. Whereas this one, you just count 3 beats. This one is a sort of more simple model. Fewer things to break on, which I think is probably an advantage. So, why would you use a metronome? Well, as we said, to improve your timing. And ideally, as we said, you want to get to a point where you can play along with other musicians, or maybe play along with a record that you like, something like that, practicing with one of your records that you want to sort of learn how say the Beatles play this certain song or something like that. You play along with it. And you want to be able to follow timing and get to the point where your sense of timing is so good that you don't have to think about it as much. It comes more naturally. Which is why it's not something that you'll just do once or do a lot of it for a while and then never practice it again. It's just like the rest of your musical abilities. You want to keep practicing it regularly so that a sense of timing comes easily to you. It's easier said than done. Some people have a natural gift for it, just like some people have perfect pitch. I certainly don't have perfect pitch or perfect timing. It's something that I have to continually work at, the timing part of things. Especially now that I am a recording musician. I do home recording of my music. So if I go to record it and there's a click track going, I want to be able to play a natural sounding performance for recording over that click track without, you know, speeding up and slowing down to try to catch up to the beat or something like that. Easier said than done. Some people have a natural ability for it, but I unfortunately am not one of those. So that's basically the use of it. And to get together with other musicians and play, even if the other person is not perfectly on time, you still want to be able to naturally follow that person. So for instance, the bassist or the percussionist or something like that. So that's a good ability to be able to follow. Even somebody who's slightly off in timing, in a casual jamming kind of situation, it's still good to be able to follow that person and not have to worry about it. So that's where the limitation of the metronome might be, that you might get so rigid in your timing or feel uncomfortable playing without it that you can't naturally improvise. Now, the other major limitation to the metronome, or being sort of bound by it, is that basically it takes out the human emotive quality of performance. So if you're playing a beautiful song, say Danny Boy or something like that, an Irish ballad, written by an English priest actually, but the melody is Irish, you would want to, you know, slow down on a certain part. And come ye back when summer's in the meadow, blah blah blah. At an emotional part, you maybe slow the beat down, but if the metronome is going click, 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 then it makes it harder to do that sometimes. So you can't sort of warm up on the lead part of a, you know, a rock and roll song or something like that. There are some songs that I play, like for instance, I'm learning right now The Wind That Shakes the Barley, traditional Irish song, and the songbooks that I have say play it freely. Well, what does that mean? It means that you're not following strictly, doggedly, the tempo of the song. In other words, there is a general sense in the back of your musical mind of what the tempo for this song should be, but basically you're being very free with it. You're letting it sort of speed up and slow down as it goes. The Italian term for that, I believe, is rubato, which basically means stealing time here or there in order to make the music more expressive. So some musicians are playing that way. So you might have ever, you know, sat down with your guitar to try and play along with a musician. You say, it seems like the timing is all messed up. It's slowing down and speeding up, but that's playing it freely. So in other words, it's good ability to be able to play along with metronome, but you wouldn't want to give up ever practicing that more freer style. So those are my thoughts generally on metronomes. I hope you found them useful. Feel free to put down in the comments section if you have any other tips for people on using metronomes, or which type of metronome is your favorite, things like that. And if you like my music videos, please check out the other ones. I have tutorials on guitar, mandolin, other things like that, songwriting. Okay, thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.